Welcome, everybody. We move forward as a discipleship group as we endeavor to dispel illusion, integrating our understanding of the science of triangles, the science of the centers, to achieve spiritual discernment on the causal plane of the soul vehicle.
The causal body is an aspect of the constitution of the human being, taking its place between the personality below, so to speak, and the monad or spirit above. The causal body has many names, and a few of them of importance are the Temple of Solomon and the egoic lotus, and as well in Socratic terms, the Algades, with whom Socrates was ever consulting. The causal body is a semi-permanent vehicle on the higher mental plane and is the source of the reincarnational impulse. After we die, we go through various transformations. We spend time, our consciousness spends time in an astral body which disintegrates and dies, a mental body which disintegrates and dies, and we return to the causal body, the egoic lotus on the higher mental plane, to assimilate entirely all that the incarnation has been and to plan the new incarnation with the help of our tutelary deity, the solar angel. The causal body will be radiant one day. In the little developed human being, the causal body has very little radiance and has very little dimension, has very little extent. The highly developed man will have a very radiant, unfolded, blossoming causal body, which will affect his environment toward love, light, and sacrifice. The causal body is our treasury. It contains our finest qualities. The causal body will one day be destroyed. Every temple must be destroyed, but it contains all the beauty that has been harvested from the quarries of personality life.
And gratitude to Monadic Media for this beautiful production that takes us into a greater understanding and relationship with our causal vehicle. So would someone like to read these key ideas that are a summary of what Michael Robbins expressed in this short video?
I'm happy to read.
Thank you, Andrea.
Key ideas expressed by Michael Robbins in the short video from Monadic Media. The causal body is an aspect of the constitution of man, human being. It is a semi-permanent vehicle that exists between the personality and the monad or spirit. It is the source of the impulse to reincarnate and is associated with various names such as the Temple of Solomon and the egoic lotus. The causal body undergoes transformations after death, eventually returning to the higher mental plane to assimilate the experiences of the incarnation and plan the next incarnation with the help of the tutelary deity, the solar angel. The causal body will one day be destroyed, but it contains all the beauty and finest qualities harvested from personality life.
Let's read this in addition before we pause to consider in depth. Martine, would you read this for us, please?
The causal body, the body of the ego, may be viewed in the following 4 ways. As 9 vibrations emanating from a central point, which, in its pulsation or radiations, produces 3 major vibrations of great force, pursuing a circular activity around the center. The 9 vibrations pursue the diagonal paths until they reach the periphery of the egoid sphere of influence. At this point, they swing around, thus forming the well-known spheroidal form of the causal body. As 9 petals of a lotus, radiating from a common center and hiding within themselves 3 central petals, which conceal central point of fire. The radiations from the tip of each petal are those which cause the illusion of a spheroidal shape. As 9 spokes of a wheel, conversion towards a central hub, which is in itself threefold, and which hides the central energy or dynamo of force, the generator of all the activity. As 9 types of energy which produce definite emanations from a threefold unit, again itself an outgoing from a central unit of force.
Let's pause to ponder and share our thoughts related to this particular description of the causal body given to us by Master DK. This is probably one of the most important statements that he makes that can help us begin to understand the level that intuition operates in from the Buddhic plane. It is on the Buddhic plane. That is the plane of intuition. Ben, would you read this for us, please? Your microphone isn't coming through. Okay, we'll come back. We'll come back. Frida, would you be able to read this for us, please?
Yes, I'll try, but I'm very, I have a bad cold and I keep sneezing.
That's okay.
Okay, the intuition is concerned with nothing whatsoever in the 3 worlds of human experience, but only with the perception of the spiritual triad and with the world of ideas. The intuition is to the world of meaning what the mind is to the 3 worlds of experience. It produces understanding just as the light of soul produces knowledge through the medium of that experience.
The intuition is concerned with nothing whatsoever in the three worlds of human experience. But only with our perceptions of the spiritual triad and with the world of ideas. Let's keep that in mind as we move forward in our consideration of ideas, illusions, and ideals. We're given this beautiful constitution of man in a more complete form, but this representation of it shows where intuition actually is a sense on a particular plane, the fourth subplane, and it is the fourth subplane of the cosmic etheric plane. That's where intuition can be found. And we, in our work, attempt to draw down these impressions from the spiritual triad into the causal vehicle, onto that level of spiritual discernment, and use discrimination to record the impressions in the mind. We're in the process of developing this, or opening what is already existing. This opening exists, it is part of the constitution of man, and we are removing hindrances and anything that can get in the way of that clear light to move into the concrete mind through the mental unit. And again, a reminder that the service that we are engaged in is by thinking the teaching into the minds of the public. You might ask, how do we do this? By holding that high point. I believe that's one of the critical things, by occult meditation and by expressing before those that we are with in any particular place, expressing what the teaching imparts. And that often is in silence, and by the expression of love, patience, tolerance, and understanding for where the individuals and groups that we are part of, where they're functioning, what their experience is, and how they're struggling to find the divine within. Andrea, would you read this for us, please?
The occult aphorism, to will, to know, to dare, and to be silent, has a special significance not hitherto revealed. We meditate upon these words, for they connote the consummation as far as humanity is concerned.
It's a note that these are given to us in a treatise on white magic, and yet it is in the rays and the initiations that Master DK explains to will, coming from Shambhala, to know from hierarchy, to dare, the linking group, the bridging group, the new group of world servers linking to humanity. And then, so interestingly, to be silent. Let's ponder on that particular guidance at this point. It allows us to look at our aspiration and to dare to be silent until there's assurance that the impression is as self-forgetful as one can possibly be, as harmless as can be expressed, and using right speech in the right application of the divine idea. Let's ponder on that for just a minute. And the goal, as we know, is to achieve mental polarization, which is a very lengthy process over many lives, because humanity as a whole, the earth as a whole, our planetary being is polarized in the astral field. So the power that containment in that astral polarization, how it weighs upon us as individuals, as groups, as nations, and the courage that it takes to begin to transcend and to begin to find our livingness and identify on the higher mental plane. Requires embodying tolerance and patience, so let us ponder for a few minutes on the spiritual significance of the following 4 words. Stability, serenity, strength, service, as we build these into our very nature, as DK says, we're aiding the work of closing the solar plexus of humanity and transmuting its force. So we consider these qualities streaming from the egoic lotus, from the causal body, into the brain, mind, and assisting in any of our 4 groups: family, community, national identification, our serving groups, whether that is teaching, healing, activating higher astral energies through assistance to those who are struggling on the astral field, and even potentially the ashramic group. We're working to close the solar plexus of humanity and transmute its force, this being the ultimate outcome for humanity under the sign of Aquarius in this Aquarian age. To transmute the energies of the astral plane, the solar plexus center lifting the energies to the heart to achieve a greater and greater level of identification and polarization in the higher mind, in the coming civilization, the age of Aquarius. So let's take a couple of moments to integrate this activity, this sense of the developing of the causal body, acting as if in our meditations we lift our attention to the highest point of entry of the energies into our planetary system from the great triangle of the extraplanetary beings. These beings working into our planetary life in order to facilitate and strengthen the Christ principle and the development of our planetary logos along the line of becoming a sacred planet. The avatar of synthesis, the spirit of peace, of equilibrium, and the Lord Buddha. We act as if we are truly aligned with that great highest point of entry into the Christ principle. And we superimpose that triangle of synthesis over the triangle of centers of our planetary logos. The avatar of synthesis aligned with Shambhala to will. The spirit of peace aligned with hierarchy, the heart center of our planet, to know. And the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light, aligned with humanity, to dare. We dare to be illumined and visualize the Christ at the center of this planetary triangle. Christ at the center, the point of receptivity for these energies to blend and merge. Martine, would you read this for us, please?
Stream or flow of ideas and ideals of the hierarchy. There is at least sensitivity to 7 groups of ideas and their resultant ideas. And if it were no more than that, hierarchy is so far fluid and pliable. But it is far more than just this, for to the member of the hierarchy, the idea and its effects are not only interpreted in terms of human thought forms and human idealism, but they are also to be contacted and studied in their relation to the mind of God Himself and to the planetary kingdom. These ideas come from and they emanate from the Buddhic plane. which is seldom open to the consciousness of the average disciple, and certainly is not open to the contact of the average idealism. So we have the triangle of Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. And in the center, the Christ consciousness.
In pondering on this, it really gives us insight into what is the dissonance that sometimes is sounded in relation to plans and implementation strategies of the average idealist. For the receptivity may be to one of the 7 or more groups of ideas on a higher level, and there isn't a purity and a flow that comes from that ashramic impression into and through the causal body. And therefore, when it is expressed, or it's registered in the concrete mind, there are levels of dissonance or a kind of impurity that doesn't align with the true ideal that's on the Buddhic plane. So our human thought forms must be studied in their relation to the mind of God and to the planetary kingdoms. We see on that high point 4.3 of the Buddhic plane where idealism is the quality, the sense. 4.4 where intuition is, and then 4.5 divine vision. So we can see how high, and that this is the plane of love, where the will to love is known. Love being that synthetic, inclusive grasp of the life and needs of all beings. Those synthesis petals, the inner petals of the egoic lotus surrounding the jewel in the advanced adept or disciple, can actually attune to these levels. And then receive on that atomic level of the higher mental plane where spiritual telepathy is found. So how can I, in my small sphere, be of service to the world? DK tells us by pointing out to us that this is done by thinking this teaching into the minds of the public, by expressing before our fellow men and women the teaching it imparts, and by a life lived in conforming with its teaching. Then our service is very real. Let the Om be heard right at the center of the group, proclaiming God is all. Sound a silent Om, affirming your place in this service and the place of your service groups, no matter what the emphasis is, in aligning and using the causal body, the egoic vehicle, to bring through the highest that is possible in our thoughts to the level of service that we're engaged in. So in closing this particular session, I'm going to share some of the ideas that were expressed in our points of pause. There's a beautiful one in relation to being silent. To be silent is given, after all we have given is given away. To be silent is given, after all we are given is given away. We empty ourselves, taking the form of a slave being born in the likeness of a human being. He emptied himself, taking the form of a slave being born in the likeness of a man. She emptied herself, taking the form of a slave being born in the likeness of a woman. There is a space of silence needed for the voice of the soul to express. So, in order for the soul to embody and express as tolerance and patience, it was pointed out that the words stability, serenity, strength, and service are needed in relation to each body, each expression, etheric physical, astral emotional, concrete mental, and higher mental. And that many of us are working on that level of the mental plane where we invoke these words and these qualities in relation to the will, the spiritual will. Stability. In the center of the will of God, I stand. Serenity. Not shall disturb, not shall upset, not shall interfere. In the center of the will of God I stand, naught shall deflect my will from God's. Strength. I implement that will. I, the triangle divine, work out that will within the square and serve my fellow men and women. I serve all humanity. the importance of Buddhic love and penetration of the Buddhic light. So important for the activation of the spiritual will, and therefore the purification, the baptism of the astral body that is required, so that the petals of the egoic lotus, the love petals of the egoic lotus, become activated and connect the higher mind and the love aspect. Love being that synthetic, inclusive grasp of the life and needs of all beings. That love expressed as those love petals of the egoic lotus, 5 in number, are developed. 3 of these petals developed in the individual in each phase of development as the aspirant progresses with the opening of this triplicity unique to that person at their point in development. Knowledge, love. Love, knowledge. Love, love. Love, sacrifice. And sacrifice, love. In the center of all love we stand. From that center we, as the soul, will outward move. From that center we, the ones who serve, will work. As humanity, the human kingdom, advances to become members of the 5th kingdom, the spiritual kingdom, we invoke the power of the 4th ray, harmony through conflict, the balance point, the stimulation of the 4th center, the heart center, and we link with the heart center of our planetary logos, the hierarchy. That high state of awareness, that higher state of consciousness that is on the Buddhic anatomic plane in the spiritual triad, where the 5th kingdom lives and moves and has its being. So with the 4th ray, this ray of balance and equilibrium, often called the chalice of the mental body, the Buddhic light is there, and we open the chalice of the 4th kingdom, which we represent on the mental plane, to allow in our meditative processes for that Buddhic light to penetrate and pure reason and that synthetic inclusive grasp of the life and needs of all beings to be transmitted into and through our spiritual discernment and find expression through the integrated personality. Thank you for joining us today, and thank all of those who've contributed their ideas, their thoughts, their impressions as we move forward together to fully understand how we live in illusion. And we are striving to move the great ideas and ideals and intuitively sense on a higher level from the Buddhic plane and transmute our own minds so that what we express reflects divinity, reflects the plan for humanity, and allows us to move forward together. Blessings to all.